key contestants in any electoral process. And it is important that we understand the level of preparedness of the political parties for the elections and what it means for democracy. Our discussion tonight will focus on two main issues or areas, and that's the BVR registration process vis-a-vis the party's ability to mobilize supporters, the state intra-party preparedness, and that's primary elections, cohesion, and candidate selection. The first part of the session will involve a discussion, and then later on we'll take questions from the floor. And we are also streaming live on Facebook via the ZSN website. And if there are any people who would like to tweet, we have the Wi-Fi password on the wall there for those who would like to access internet. And the hashtag for this discussion is ZimVote2018. And now it's my pleasure to introduce and welcome our three panelists who will help us to try and analyze the state of the political parties in Zimbabwe. Starting from my far left, we have Glenn Mpani, who is the managing partner for Shikamo Political Advisory and Campaign Services. He is a democracy and governance practitioner who has worked in various capacities for the last 15 years in Africa, and his area of interest are in representative democracy with focus on political campaigns, party development, local government, and general elections. And currently he's a Mason Fellow studying towards a Master's in Public Administration at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government. Welcome, Glenn. And the next to Glenn is Sakile Sifela Ningoma, who is a passionate feminist lawyer with a wealth of experience in women's political activism. She is driven by a passion for Africa, governance, development, and the empowerment of women. And Sakile is currently the Executive Director of Women in Politics Support Unit, which is a vibrant feminist resource base for women in Zimbabwe. And last but not least, we have Charity Manyaruke, who is a professor of political science and international relations at the University of Zimbabwe. She focuses her research on African politics, governance, international relations, regional integration, security, and political economy. Welcome to you all. Let me start this discussion by getting your thoughts first on the state of the political parties in Zimbabwe. Let's start with you, Charity. What's your view on the main political parties in the country and what has been going on in the last few months?
Thank you, coordinator, facilitator. The status of political parties in relation to elections, in my view, is that they are doing the needful, what is supposed to be done. Albeit, they've had, this is the 5th year, in terms of being either the ruling party or they are government in waiting. So if we are talking of political parties, they've obviously been marketing themselves through their actions. I should be quick to say, in my own view, I think that in terms of political parties, we have some political parties that, in my view, don't understand their mandate as political parties. There's a huge difference between political parties and civil society, for example. But we have those two being mixed up. I know sometimes the lines are thin, but some parties then tend to be more of just running in the advocacy, and sometimes they forget that they should also be involved in programs, because at the end of the day, you want to attract the electorate, and you want the electorate to be able to say, this is beyond just rhetoric, just saying we have a promise. It's a promise and practice. People are looking at that. So we do have political parties, but as I have said, some political parties tend not to show that they know what a political party is and what political parties are expected to do. That creates a bit of confusion because, you know, sometimes people begin to think that political parties, their duty is to complain. Political parties should behave like governments in waiting. You know, it means, I don't want to go into a lecture on what political parties are supposed to do, but that has been problematic in terms of the expectations of a political party and the knowledge of a political party. There are factors that contribute to that ignorance. Chief among them is the issue of poverty. You know, when people are in poverty, there can be a big problem in understanding what political parties are expected to do and what they should do, even the generality of the population knowing what is supposed to be done. But generally, yes, we have political parties or institutions that call themselves political parties. Okay.
All right. So, Sakile, in your analysis, could you also talk more about what you think the state of preparedness towards election is in terms of the main political parties?
Thanks, Violet. I think from where we're sitting as WIPSU, I think what we're seeing is political parties that are behind schedule. We've had political parties, regardless of which side of the, whether they're the ruling party or the, opposition parties, whether they're in parliament or fielding candidates or, establishing themselves post-2013. We have political parties who have been deeply involved in some kind of fracturing and fissuring. And as a result, the normal sort of political programming that you would see that is correlated to the election cycle, it would be twinned with each other. I think actually one of the things that the BVR process did was that it brought some sort of connectivity from internal political party organizing to the general election management body organizing. Had it not been for that, I'm quite worried to say that we wouldn't see, the normal unveiling of political party processes. Secondly, if you look in the internal processes that political parties are currently undertaking, again, I think we're behind schedule. 2018 is going to be pretty unique. It's going to be characterized by, a lot of associations, coalitions, or whatever you want to call them. And in these umbrellas, the processes of being election ready, I think really, we shouldn't be where we are. We should be a lot further along the program. Because by the time we start going into the primary season, there are certain things that should have been that we would expect should have been done already. It should be
like what?
Well, I think we should have gone into primaries. I think we are 8 March. I think that these should have been, pretty much done away with by then. Worst case scenario, maybe we should have had them a little bit earlier in the year, so that if you are a candidate, you are openly canvassing, regardless of which political party you have. And I think that delay has got an impact on citizenry, because we are not members of political parties. Most citizens, if we look at Afrobarometer, are not members of political parties. So the citizens are asking, why should I get involved in this voting business? What am I voting for? Who am I? What is the interest? And if you're not able to get organized enough sufficiently to be able to table that interest and to solicit that conversation, I don't see you having enough space or ability to maneuver in the election period.
Thank you so much, Violet. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I'm not going to repeat what my colleagues have just said. I think they've raised very pertinent issues. I think we're going to an election with a unique outlook. I think this is the first election that the two dominant parties don't have the founding members. Zanu-PF not having Robert Mugabe as the candidate, and the MDC not having Morgan Tsvangirai as the candidate. And I think that is very important. Secondly, we're going to an election with a new voters' roll, having had a voter registration drive across the country. That's also very significant. Third, we are going to an election when the two dominant political parties are confronted with similar challenges. One, they're confronted with dealing with succession. It's traditionally had support in the urban areas. Very few people went out to register. Then you look at the rural areas, which are traditionally the Zanu-PF bases. They've managed significantly to have the numbers. the voters' roll says a lot about what is likely to happen in an election. So in my views, that gives a picture in terms of the level of preparedness for the coming election.
We'll talk a bit more about these stats that we received from ZEC, especially to do with the rural vote and also the urban vote. As Glenn has just pointed out that in the rural areas, it's been seen that there's been more people who have actually registered to vote than in the urban areas. So what does that mean? But I wanted to find out, do you think there's a growth or maturity in our political parties? Glenn, and then go to Steve.
Like Prof. Manyuka has mentioned, the MDC came from a movement and civil society. It has not yet grown into a political party. And I think there are a number of factors that one can be able to put on the table in terms of them not institutionalizing into a political party. One, it has to do with the building of their structures. It has to do with mobilizing of their supporters outside of the election process. It also has to do with the resources. All these are factors. Zanu-PF has been in existence for a long time. That is why you see that they have structures such as cells and branches. They might not have people within those structures, but they are evident, they are able to mobilize them. Then we've got the smaller parties that we have that are coming up. Zimbabwe, for a country like this, now has got about 85, 94 political parties. I wouldn't want to say it's too much or it's very little, but I think those that are also there coming in is nothing really distinctive that separates them from those that are existent other than the personalities that are currently in existence. So my view is in terms of maturity, they are not yet there. Are they doing enough to invest in building the political parties? I think they're doing very little. More could be done. Parties are being viewed as vehicles of accessing public office. And that in itself is causing them to end up with weak candidates, lack of clarity on policy, all this factionalism. It's a result that the party is not yet stronger. And as a result of it, you only use it when it's election time and then it implodes. So those are my views in terms of maturity of parties.
And Sakile, you did mention that people don't know who to vote for and even when to vote. And then the point that Glenn has just pointed out is that we have at least 84 political parties.
107.
107.
From today's meeting with ZEC, ZEC is saying that they have, as of 8 March, they have been notified, they have received 107 political party notifications. So,
what do you make of that?
Well, I think, it's coffee time, so everyone wants to have a cup of tea. What I think, to add to the issues of maturity, we need to have a conversation about maturity in the broad sense. I want to speak from the basis of the the Afrobarometer. In Zimbabwe, it is clear whether you like it or you don't like it. And I think all of us in here and those who are watching online know that generally we have disconnected from the political space, the traditional so-called political spaces. And this disconnect is very real and tangible. But above and beyond that, in this, this concept of messaging that is there. Today is Women's Day, for example. What political party is meaningfully talking to me about my rights as a woman? Why should I really care about any political party? Yes, I want Zimbabwe to have a good economy. But what does a good economy mean for me? Does it mean more tax in terms of corporates? Does it mean more VAT? Should we go up or down since we are already broke? What does it actually mean to have a good economy that works for me? Right? So, because you don't have this bigger conversation on what are we going for and what are we looking for, what are we paying, you then have weak, what I call weak political maturity, because then what is being offered to the citizen, to connect to the citizen, is very meaningless. Today, I think we are in day 39 of the Wange strike, of the women in Wange, who are striking for, basically, they're striking on behalf of their spouses and families. And they are saying, we need someone to pay attention to this. I am not seeing a single political party, be it in government or outside, that is actually saying, this is an issue that we think makes sense. So how are you going to package yourself in a mature way to bridge the very real divide between you and the citizens? Because your supporters are not the ones who vote for you. It's the JKR that votes.
The Charity, what can you say about all this?
Thank you. I just want to first respond to 3 issues mentioned by Glenn before I respond to your question. Glenn mentioned a very important point from his perspective that parties we're getting to an election where parties are without founding members, and that is bound to, you said that it will affect the elections. I would want to say that what we have to bear in mind is that parties are never formed by one person. You know, Zanu-PF for a fact was not formed by Robert Mugabe. You know, and Tsvangirai also is not the only person who formed the MDC movement, I would say. So, going beyond what my point is that, you know, political parties are supposed to have structures in place, they're supposed to have constitutions, they're supposed to have supporters. And, you know, whether you have, may he so rest in peace, Tsvangirai, whether you have people that died, the presidents that died, or that are expelled or moved out or suspended or, you know, retire, you know, the point is that parties are not supposed to stop because the individuals have left the party because of various reasons. So it also comes back to your question on whether we have political maturity. You know, in different forms we have seen MDC movements. They are still there. Yes, we experienced the unfortunate death of Tsvangirai, but the parties are still there. You know, whether that will affect the elections, it's another story, because we are saying, even when he was there, you know, what was happening in the MDC movement, you know, has probably escalated, but it had started even happening. The cracks, you know, the divisions and so forth, the confusions were still there, you know, then. And maybe they are now even worse, maybe because, you know, of various reasons, again, I would want to say.
But can I just interrupt you there when we talk about personalities? In practical terms, if we see the situation right now, that's what the parties are like. They are built around personalities. The MDC is called the MDC-T, MDC Tsvangirai, and also Mugabe seems to have been a very dominant figure in Zanu-PF. And I'd actually like to read an interesting tweet I saw the other day from a civic leader, Nyarazai and she said, I quote, "Two politically shaking events for Zimbabwe. Mugabe gives his Asante Sana message and Tsvangirai passed on. What a moment for the country to go into elections in a few months' time. The presidential candidates have to win the hearts and minds of the people." So don't you think that the main political parties are actually going to have a mammoth task of selling their new candidates, since you've had these very domineering personalities in the main political parties?
I think the important issue we have to consider is whether these personalities are in themselves political parties. You know, there's a big issue there you have to understand, whether we are saying Mugabeism is Zanu-PF or was Zanu-PF. It was not. Zanu-PF was and is still about the people, the supporters, you know, and all the constitution and so forth. The same applies with, you know, the MDC formations. You know, remember, you know, how MDC came about. You know, it was the labor issues, isn't it? The labor movement and so forth. The workers are still there. They have not died. They are still there. You know, and also we have all these formations, even civil society, that came about as a result of opposition politics. But it's not about personalities. I think Zimbabwe has demonstrated in November that they are not bound by personalities. They can go beyond, you know, the issue of personalities and be able to unite as a country and even as political parties, vis-a-vis the issue of personalities. So it's not that narrative is actually wrong to say that because Mugabe is not in Zanu-PF, so Zanu-PF is shattered. It's not. It is actually stronger. The MDCs, the different movements we saw, now the alliances and so forth, we see now a lot of meetings taking place. Maybe you are not, you know that there were lesser meetings before, but there is something that happens when, these unfortunate, events do okay. When there is death, even in families, people unite. They unite or break apart as families, So what we are witnessing now in terms of MDC formations is the aftermath of this unfortunate incident of what is dead. People fight for property. Isn't it that's what happens even in normal, even at family level. People fight for properties. People are fighting for properties. They are fighting for even supporters, because that's what happens after death. But we are talking about elections now. Those incidents, how are they affecting the political parties? But my point here is that, parties are not about personalities. If parties are still sticking to personalities, then they are immature. The issue of maturity that you talked about, it means that they are no way. I think Glenn talked about it. When parties behave like companies, when parties behave like civil society, where they run after one thing, and when that one thing is done, they don't know their identity. So it creates all these problems.
Okay, let's hear from Saki. You wanted to say something about personalities, I guess.
No, but she rounded it off, and I agreed with her. I think I was just trying to raise the point that I think in 2018, what we're going to see is it's a growth point. It's an opportunity for Zimbabweans to grow or to make a decision to walk backwards. We have had a politics characterized heavily by a politics of personalities. The question is, will we be able to see, political growth in the sense that these political parties institutionalized deeper? Yes, there might have been political parties in a certain way, but it was, I think, inadequate. Will they institutionalize deeper? Because the reality is, in every political season, in every election season, there's almost that moment of, this is the thing of this election, for example, you think about, there's always something that raises the dust in every election. There was the Simbamakoni moment in 2008, there's always and what I'm waiting for is the wins. Mwandoa 2018, Hausatwa, Wash.
I'm going to disagree with Prof. Manyeruke so that at least I provide clarity. Whenever we discuss Zimbabwe, we need to diagnose the Zimbabwe problem very clearly. Why is Zimbabwe where it is right now? It's not because of Zanu-PF, neither is it because of MDC. It's a leadership crisis. The leadership crisis cuts across the political divide. So you might remove Zanu-PF tomorrow and put another political party. You have not addressed the leadership problem. Why do I insist that we have got personalities dominating the politics within the political parties? Zanu-PF without Mugabe, whether you like it or not, Mugabe had supporters within the party. The base in Zanu-PF is divided. So which means that the current president, Mnangagwa, is going to an election with a divided party. Within the MDC-T, it's the same reality. The party is not united, it's divided. Both political parties that are dominant have progressively had fissures and splits within. Manjuru left Zanu-PF, now we have the G40 factor, we've got other factors within the ruling party. In the MDC would narrate Walshman, Tendai Biti, Elton Mangoma, now we have the Cooper factor. And at the center of it is the fact that we have got dominating individuals. Within Zanu-PF, the fact that they could not deal with succession was the fact that Mugabe was the towering figure. So one thing that I want clarity from Professor is, are we saying that because Mugabe is gone, Zanu-PF is united? No. Because the supporters, when President Mnangagwa was removed, they all passed, all 10 provinces passed vote of no confidence endorsing the removal of President Mnangagwa. 3 weeks down the line, President Mnangagwa came back, they all 10 provinces passed the vote of no confidence endorsing the removal of President Mugabe. That party is not united. If you go to the MDC-T, you analyze it very critically. What do you see? If you look at the previous elections that were held, I think a couple of years ago when Nelson Chamisa contested with Douglas Monzora, regardless of the fact that Nelson had won a sizable number of provinces across the country, they went to Congress and Nelson did not win. Now after this incident when Morgan died, what do you see? You see the rise of one of Nelson Chamisa. Initially before the burial of Morgan Tsvangirai, Douglas Monzora and Muzuri were showing signs that they were saying, you know what, we don't think this is fair, we should go for Congress. But the moment they realize that the individual has risen beyond what they as individuals can be able to deal with, they retracted their steps. So personalities control the politics of Zimbabwe. And it's not wrong for personalities to do that, but they should not own the parties. And I think that is the crisis that we have in Zimbabwe right now.
Professor, before you answer Glenn's question there, would you also give us your thoughts on this issue of there's this assumption that Mugabe is not liked in Zanu-PF structures, and yet we see quite a lot of videos via social media of people, especially in the rural areas, saying Mugabe deal with. So is the allegiance of Zanu-PF actually known?
Yes, the allegiance of Zanu-PF is known. You know, Zanu-PF is, from what I understand, a very mature political party. I would want to say that I agree with Glenn when he says that we had political leadership issues in all these sides. I mean, Zanu-PF and also in MDC, there were leadership issues and leadership issues that were really complex, especially if you look at Zanu-PF. You know, there was a lot of complexities there, you know, and to the extent that when I mean, people would not understand why all the provinces then supported Mnangagwa. There was an issue of, you know, and I'm sure most people in the country, when we marched on the, was it the 18th, you know, agreeing that, you know, the leadership of Mugabe had lost touch with the people. And, you know, people actually rose against that, you know, to say that they wanted more space, they wanted a leadership which was in tandem with, you know, the demands of the people, you know, and therefore, you know, for a long time, Mnangagwa had been supported. In fact, this is what had created most of the problems, particularly with Mugabe realizing that Mnangagwa had a lot of support. I'm sure you have heard people saying that it took eight youth rallies, you know, to remove Mnangagwa. But the intention, I think, it was there already from Mugabe himself, because he saw that threat coming. But this is what makes, this is what the factor that people don't understand, that this Mnangagwa factor, even for this election, is a factor, it's the factor for me. The Mnangagwa factor is the factor, because it had an effect for, and still has an effect for the whole country. You know, we are likely to see a free and fair election, because already has invited observers. You know, I mean, calling on observers, I know the EU, we heard at least from news that EU has been invited, you know, to observe the elections. So that freeness, that openness is a factor that we cannot miss. But the generality of people who are outside Zanu-PF fail to see the point that the fact that Mnangagwa was supported, by people in Zanu-PF, the majority of the people in Zanu-PF. This is one issue that people will see as we go to the election.
Saki, your thoughts on this, especially bringing in the G40 Mugabe factor and also the formation of this new party, the MPF led by retired Brigadier General Ambrose Mutini?
I'll go with free, fair, and credible, and I'll say free, fair, credible, and peaceful election. My concern is the peacefulness of the election, the operating environment. There might be willingness to go to the polls and to have, an electoral process that tries its best to meet the kinds of standards that we want to see, not only international standards, but even what we would that are demanded as local standards. Yes, our laws might not yet be in position, but I think there's a pretty clear understanding of what we expect from an election. But the question is, in what kind of context? In a context where I think, let's just talk about 2018. Let's not talk about last year. Just in this 2018 period, have we not seen an operating environment that is heavily characterized by phenomenal amounts of hate speech in the public domain? Have we not seen a 2018, just in the 2018 period, an environment where we have seen high levels of party violence inside the political parties? Now, if I am an ordinary citizen and I want to talk about making elections make sense for ordinary people, if I am an ordinary citizen and I'm not a member of a political party, and I want to be part of this election process, and I want to say, I think it was free, fair, and credible. How free or fair is it going to be for me when I cannot express my political opinion, whether I'm on social media or I'm walking down the street, and not get attacked for it? But even if I don't get attacked for it, how free do I think it is when I see members of political parties? Because normal citizens think that people inside political parties are probably crazy people because we don't realize that they're normal people. And then we think, if they can't deal with the violence inside their own political party, what about little old me? So, we're going to see that election, but against an environment of high levels of internal party violence. And violence has got a long-term systemic impact on citizens and in communities.
Thank you for bringing that issue up, Sagi, and I want to just quickly ask you another question based on what you've just said. What about the role that the civil society is playing in this? Because we've talked about the violence that is happening within political parties, and especially today on International Women's Day. I would like to hear from you, where's the outcry from the women's movement when we had Joyce Mujuru, who was attacked, and then also Thokozani Kupe has said that she's been attacked in the MDC. So where are the voices from the women's movement and also in the political parties, the Women's League? Okay. What can you say about that?
Well, starting from the women's movement, I can say that consistently, since 2014, the women's movement has consistently stated that we abhor all forms of violence in political parties. And in particular, we abhor violence against women in political parties. But we have gone further beyond that and said we want political parties to pledge for peace. Because we're getting tired. I think if you're a woman in Zimbabwe, if you ask any woman, women don't like elections. Women in this country feel that elections is another word for violence. And we're tired of counting women as statistics of victims of violence. But what we want to see is action. If the political party is the perpetrator of the violence, or a member of the political party is the perpetrator of that violence, why must it be a mechanism outside the political party that responds to that violence? The women's movement can only do so much. What is required is a culture of no impunity by those who have the powers and the ability to curtail the violence. Let's look at sports. If you go to sports and there's violence at sports, and my team is Team Pink, and my supporters are seen to have beaten up the supporters of Team Brown, my club gets penalized, right? My club gets penalized and maybe I lose a couple of points or I lose the game even though we scored more. But are we seeing that in the Zimbabwean environment? We are not. Inside political parties, there is violence. Then the question says, why is it that the people outside are not condemning that violence? What we should be talking about is, what is the quality of leadership vis-a-vis the peace issues, social cohesion, and no violence inside political parties? Let's go beyond statements that say, oh, we are deeply committed deeply committed to no violence. What have you actually done? A, to prevent violence from breaking out, and when the violence happens, what are you doing to stop the violence immediately before you start going to say, let's go to the police, stop the violence. When you stop the violence, let's see the sanctions for the perpetrators of violence. It mustn't be a mystery.
Glenn, your thoughts on this, especially the Kupe, Chamisa, and Muzuri issues in the MDC?
When a political party comes into space, they are offering an alternative. Political parties exist because they are saying they are different. So when a political party says they are different, they should not only be different in terms of the symbol, in terms of the slogans, in terms of the songs that they sing in their political party. They should be different in the values that they stand for. I think I would like to categorically state that MDC has been very weak in dealing with, using Zanu-PF language, criminal elements within the party. Violence is not a way in which you resolve the problems that are in the party. They have used words like, we are investigating. You see, the moment a party uses a strategy like you go for a press conference, you institute a commission of inquiry, that you know that a commission of inquiry, nothing is going to come out of it, and then nothing emerges out of it. One begins to question the seriousness in dealing with criminality within the party. And one of the things that I would have wanted the MDC-T to do is to say, we have had this in successive years, where people who hold opposing views are either harassed or they are hounded out of the party, or there is violence. Yes, we know that Zanu-PF at times infiltrates the opposition and they say they are people. But internally within the party, there is a culture of intolerance. And it's important to not only condemn, like what Saki is saying, is to really check out those criminal elements. Because that is the alternative that they are proposing to Zimbabweans. So if all parties are now the same, the question that one needs to ask is, why should I vote for A and not B? This is why you see now citizens voting with their feet. They don't go to vote because there is no alternative, there is no option on the table.
You know, you actually tweeted the other day, and I quote, you said, the MDC-T is faced with an interesting political dilemma, follow constitution and end up with a candidate from the structures of the party, or listen to the court of public opinion and end up with a candidate not legitimate. Can you elaborate on this?
Yes, my tweets, I mean everything that I say on my tweets. I don't retract. Right. I think one of the issues that came up is the question of how a leader had to be elected outside of the MDC-T. It's said that Morgan Richard Shangai passed away, and he played a very pivotal role. But it's also equally important to raise the problem that the reason why the MDC-T is where it is a result of his failure to deal with who is going to lead after him. This problem had been on the table for a long time. Now the issue that comes up is, what do their constitution say? There were divergent views within their party. Do we go for a congress? Does the National Council make a decision? In my view, if I had been Nelson Chamisa, regardless of the grounds of support that I might have in the public court of opinion, to ensure that whatever structures that my opponents are raising, that they need to endorse my candidature, I would do it so that I don't get into to run an election with a cloud hanging over me. It's very important because politics is about the optics. But also equally important, the lawyers within the party need to understand that this is politics. It's not like going to court. So you might go to court tomorrow and the court declares Nelson Chamisa that he's not the candidate. But with all these groundswell support that he has, where there's evidence support for him, what do? So you have a contradiction within a party. That's what you need to manage. And that is what I was raising in my tweet.
Yes, I want to contribute to this issue that is being raised, the issue of violence and also the issue of women. The issue of violence, I think if we are analyzing the issue of politics and elections over the years, I think it emanates from the fact that some people who want to be leaders have nothing to offer. They want to be leaders and they have nothing to offer, and therefore they allow violence to take place. Because when you are beating someone, you want to intimidate that someone, isn't it? And you want to force them to agree that you are the one who is supposed to lead, yet you have nothing to offer. If you have something to offer nicely, you actually follow the procedures, you wait for your time, you don't beat people, you follow the procedures. So I think our biggest problem there of people who want to beat, to commit these forms of violence is because they have nothing to offer, so that's one. So it's about, if you want to be a leader, you should be able to offer something that can make the electorate support you. That's one. Then the other issue that is problematic, which we have to accept, is the issue of patriarchy. If we are talking of women, this issue has been problematic in our society. Tingatobvunza madzimambo anditi kuti vana mai midzimu nezvechinyakare zvinobvumira here kuti vana mai vaitewo mune matongerwo enyika ende vanofanira kuti vasvike papi. There are some limitations that are still there structurally in terms of our society, and it creates problems. Like it or not, it creates problems for women when it comes to their development. And unfortunately, because of the unemployed youth, they get paid to commit these acts of violence, unfortunately. So we have those questions which we are still grappling with as a society, that is the issues of patriarchy. I know that our government, in terms of the constitution, they've tried to assist the issue of patriarchy by putting in the quota system as a way, and even the issue of affirmative action is to try and realize that fact that somewhere women are shortchanged, because of the nature of how we came to be where we are as a society. So that creates problems. But the issue of the youth unemployed, so if employment is created, we are bound to see problems lessening, particularly the violence. Because remember, our youth at the moment, because of high unemployment, are in drugs, they don't have any forms of income. So easily.
We'll come to the issue of the youth, especially with this latest statistics. But I think, Sagi, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I wanted to add something on, the issue of patriarchy and, Charity, you were speaking about it. Government says something and then we go missing. I want to clarify, there is no mystery here. Let's just call a spade a spade. Political parties don't like women. Yes, you want, they go around, it's Women's Day. Let's talk fair. We go around and you say, are you listening to me? They say that they support us because we are their mothers, we are their sisters, we are their whatever. But when we are in political parties and the issues of power, because politics has also got to do with power, when the issue of power is on the table, I have not seen a political party that says, no, we are willing to share this power half-half. I have not seen it. We have a constitution. Right now, there is not a single political party that has a constitution that is aligned to the national constitution. There is no political party that is even saying, okay, even if our paperwork is not correct, let us make our practice correct. There is no political party right now that has got 50% of its members, whether it's their, it doesn't matter which party it is, but the leadership of political parties. You tell me how many political party presidents are women, or how many political party vice presidents, or national organizing secretaries, or commissars, or whatever, or even provincial, that was my chairman, because there is never a woman.
No, but
let's not go there. Before we start that, my argument is very simply, for the change of practice to happen around issues of women and numbers, you need to have a commitment that goes beyond, that goes beyond saying, yes, we like you. I have not seen any mechanism come to life. There is paperwork mechanisms, but the practical mechanisms that can equate. Why is it that the women's movement is demanding and saying, we were having a huge, I don't know if you're aware of the media, but on the 6th of March, over 18 political parties got together, and the women's movement, and the Speaker of Parliament was there, but also we had 40 political parties signing up to a gender equality pledge, right? Why is it that 37 years after independence, women in Zimbabwe are still having to go and negotiate to say, don't you think it's a good idea if you give us half? Are you getting me? It's because there is something missing. And my argument is that that something that is missing is a demonstrated, not a commitment, but a demonstrated commitment to upholding the value of equality. So for me, elections, if they are going to be democratic elections or above the board, they are intrinsically correlated to numbers. I can't call it democracy when it keeps giving me less than 15%.
Why are we still talking about this 38 years after independence, Charles?
Yes, I wanted to say, whilst we are calling a spade a spade, women are also to blame. When we are in leadership positions, we have to accept it. Sometimes we have also promoted violence. It's not a matter. I've tweeted this morning, it was not tweeting. I shared a WhatsApp group. I said, as we commemorate this International Women's Day, then we are but where we are in leadership positions, we also don't advise, properly, adequately, efficiently, or in a manner that is satisfactory. That spirit of motherhood. People need to appreciate that when we are talking of leadership, there are issues that are supposed to be advantageous. Issues of motherhood, issues of caring, issues of warmth to political parties. And, even if we talk elections, but this evil spirit is a problem. And it leads to people perishing. So whilst we blame patriarchy, we blame the lack of readiness, but also we are also to blame because we don't advise properly. Our one of the mind, and men also lose faith in our leadership. So we have our part to contribute as women.
But Charity, I want to pinch you there, if I may. Sorry, I want to pinch her there because for me, I'll give you an example. Yes, there are women who are also, patriarchy recruits every day, and it recruits everybody. It recruits men, it recruits women, okay? But what I am saying here is that there is an above and beyond. I want to give something that I don't like to talk about. People say that there is a pull here Down syndrome, okay? But I've never heard of people talking about a pull here Down syndrome. When Mnangagwa was having his issues with Robert Gabriel Mugabe, did someone say, oh no, Mnangagwa is pulling Robert Gabriel Mugabe down? No, they just said they're arguing. When it is with two women arguing, it's now a unique and extraordinary thing. I feel that it's like, you know, literally blaming the victim for being a victim. Someone has stolen my phone. Now I report that someone has stolen my phone, and then I am being told that no, are you sure you even had the phone, or did you? That's what's happening with this thing. And that's why I'm saying, yes, women can also behave badly. But my point is, if you're a political party, why must we negotiate with you to say, before we go to primary elections, can you make sure that half of the people who want jobs in your political party, half of them are women? Why must I negotiate? It's not normal, Violet, to have a cabinet. Out of 22 people, you've got 4 women. It's not normal.
It's unacceptable.
Look at South Africa that did their thing just now. Till when did she
No, true that. And Glenn, just to talk a little bit about the youth charity, spoke a little bit about that, but also I wanted to find out your thoughts on the latest figures that have just come out, that at least or more than 60% of the registered voters are youths. So my question is that, do you think that the candidature of Nelson Chamisa at 40 could have invigorated the youth to go and register?
Yeah, the figures of 60% registering are not only unique to Zimbabwe, it's a global phenomenon. We've got a youth voucher. But let me caution, no one is a monopoly on the youth vote. I think there are examples globally of youth voting in a different way, in a different pattern. So you can't, in a way, come up with an argument that there's a correlation that because Nelson is 40, and therefore 60% of the people who register to vote are going to vote for him. That won't work like that. The youth have different reasons why they are going to register. And also you should remember that the candidature of Nelson came out after the Blitz. So the results of the Blitz cannot be attributed to the age. Remember, Zanu-PF, they did their youth star rallies across the country. I don't know to what extent that had an impact because I have not looked at the data. Civil society did a lot of work using arts and industry to go out and mobilize young people to go and register. But you should also remember, it's one thing to register and another to go and vote. The two also are not the same. It doesn't mean that you've got 5.3 people, 1 million people on the voters roll, all of them are going to try and vote. No. You have to work on the numbers. So what is only important is that the youth have an opportunity of deciding the next president of Zimbabwe. But the question is, will they vote for a 40-year-old? Will they vote for a 70-year-old? Or they'll vote for other candidates who are there in APA, Good Zimbabwe Alliance, and all the other parties? That remains up for grabs.
But what do you think is the impact of these smaller parties like APA, Good Zimbabwe Alliance, and how effective do you think they are? Especially with what's happening with these others, with what's happening within the main political parties.
Zimbabwe is currently a two-party dominant system. So the two parties, MDC-T or MDC Alliance and Zanu-PF, will remain dominant in this election. But the other smaller parties are benefiting now from the internal problems within these parties. The conversation in 2023 is going to be different. And my assumption is that as the parties go on to split, Zimbabwe is now opening itself for coalitions. We might possibly now going the Kenyan way, where in 2023 you might have factions of APA, factions of Zanu-PF, factions in MDC-T, factions in NPF coming together and having an alliance now, their own alliance. That is very possible. So 2023, the dominance of these two political parties will no longer be the same. Things are going to change.
Sagi, what about the MDC Alliance? How strong is that?
Oh, you're taking me straight there. Can I first comment on what you're saying?
All right, go ahead.
I want to take it from from a different perspective. I want to say, welcome Zimbabwe to political diversity. You know what I mean? I would propose that we start looking at this political party space differently. You know, let's welcome the build, the upper, let's welcome them into the fold. Let's have, you know, a parliament and a local government environment that looks like, you know, a rainbow slice of cake. Because I think it is clear that the dominance of any political party in any particular space has not really worked for the ordinary person in Zimbabwe, regardless of which side of the political divide you may have been. Why don't we begin to have a better conversation amongst ourselves, where we talk about, because I think Glenn is very right, an odd 5 million on the voters roll, and then you've got more than half of them. If you look at 2013, I think it was almost 40% who didn't even bother to go and vote, which means they didn't like what they were being offered. Let's make the menu bigger. That's my argument. Then you took me to Alliance, but Charity is going, so I'm going to let her take it.
Thank you. I'm glad that you raised the issue of the youth and voting. You know, I've no doubt that the youth are, as you have pointed out, going to vote for a number of factors. Chief among them, I've already mentioned, is the issue of employment. You know, if a party is going to offer prospects of dealing with employment, you know, industrializing the country so that there is employment, you know, they will have the youth in their back, you know, and obviously the youth are a globalized group, you know. If you are opening the economy, the youth will vote for you, definitely, you know, because that's, the youth don't want to be closed up. They want, you know, even the, you know, if you are going to open up even diaspora communications, that's what the youth are looking for. You know, so it's most critical is the issue of employment, because, you know, remember we used to have even Form 4 getting employed in factories. Youth are looking at that. A level getting employed in factories, then going to colleges. You know, it becomes, you know, a truly higher tertiary education. Not that it's a must. And you know what has been happening? You get a degree, then you are selling bad cards, you know, or you are carrying sand, you know, you know, or you know what you call you know, that's what the degrees youth are into, you know. So anyone who's going to place value in education will obviously get the youth votes.
Okay. All right. Let's just stop here for now in terms of the plenary session, and I would like to just take some questions or views or comments from the floor. And do we have any people who would like to ask?
Discussion. I just want to comment on the personality. I hope when we talk of personality politics, we are looking at things like charisma and eloquence. Definitely in this election, we are going to witness a new phase in that both in MDC and Zanu-PF, the level of engagement with supporters is different because of charisma. But in my political science lessons, I learned that charisma is a natural tendency to fade with time. So even if Morgan Changirai was still around or Mugabe was still around, 2018 was bound to be different because of changing times and the issues at hand. So we cannot expect an election where it's not issue-based so far in Zimbabwe. And lastly, I want to talk about voter apathy. The world over, you don't see a lot of people telling how to vote. So there are several environmental matters which will cause people to go out to vote. But in the current discourse, I'm not hearing people talking about agendas that will excite people to go and vote, except for a few matters that have been historically on the table.
When the political party fracturing started in 2013, our organization actually issued 2 statements. We issued a statement on the disintegration are in the political parties and its impact on women, and also on the increased levels of hate speech. When the situation, should I say, escalated into physical violence, again, we spoke to that. But we were also the first people to celebrate women being presidents of political parties. We were the first to also tell you that out of these 107 political parties, 7 actually headed by women. And we were the first to say, you know, congratulations to women, but also, being a woman in leadership, you also have to represent women's issues. It's not, you know, I think we are going for both numbers and substantive equality. So I would respectfully disagree. What I find interesting is that when we communicate as women into the general society, there seems to be, you know, a misunderstanding that happens. There is an expectation that we are going to say the things that you want us to say. But our mouths belong to us. We will say that which we want to say. We want political party leadership that speaks to equality. We want political leadership that speaks to equality, not just in numbers, but in substance. So, whilst we celebrate those 7 women, we are now busy going to focus on the 7 women who are candidates in political parties. And of course, we can criticize to say some of them, even in their political parties, don't have 50% as a target. But my argument is, why are we leaving the other 100 political parties? Because my argument is that in the political parties that look like they are the dominant political parties currently, none of those political parties have women as presidents, none of them have women as VPs, or I suppose now with MDC-T, I don't know what I'm supposed to say, because I don't know what the prevailing situation is. But none of them are also committing in a concrete, demonstrable, I'm talking about, yes, they've got commitments, but the practicality of that leadership is not translating. So I think that we also have a schizophrenic media and a schizophrenic society that doesn't understand the voice that women have, which is why we're being forced to reiterate time and time and again with respect. Thank you.
Thank you. I would want to, the issue of women in politics and minded would want to say, acknowledge, yes, that at some point, you know, we as academics, as myself as an academic, it became very difficult to comment. And today I sit here celebrating the restoring of freedom of conscience. And this is why I agreed to come here freely, you know, because in South Africa they talked of state capture. In Zimbabwe, I say we had been captured as the people, and it became very difficult to express oneself. But because of the Operation Restore Legacy, which I call Operation Restore Order, Operation Restore Unwedu, even my researchers, you know, because today now you can even come and I will tell you what I tell them freely, you know. Sure, I want to acknowledge that problem. It did happen at some point. Myself, I actually felt to comment on anything, you know. But the issue of voter apathy, you talked about, the agenda is not there. There is a misunderstanding in our politics, our society, body politic, that manifestos are for elections. Manifestos are not just for the election period. That before elections, you begin to have a manifesto. That is problematic. We are supposed to be seeing agendas of political parties right from even the day, you know, when people go to parliament. We are actually even supposed to see the development of those manifestos each day, updating of the manifestos. But sure, in Zimbabwe, the culture is that you have an announcement which says, we now have an elected manifesto. From my point of view, that is problematic. We are supposed, political parties are supposed to be running with their manifestos every day, updating them, developing them. You know, that's what we are supposed to have. So the agendas are there. The agendas are limited. That is what is problematic. The agendas must be updated.
Okay. Do you have anything to add to
Let me debunk the misplaced notion that an election is won because of manifestos. I think it's a notion that is carried out usually by the elite, and people who are educated who think that my mother in Werum Day is going to look at who is offering a policy that reduces GDP, who is going to be offering a policy that is going to deal with third roads. Elections are an emotional process. You need to emotionally connect with people. You cannot shift a loyal Zanu-PF member to go across to MDC-T. Chances are that you can convince that person not to go and vote. But for them to cross over to another party, it's an uphill task. So, and it's tragic. I know you would want it to be driven by issues. But a party has to come up with a campaign that emotionally connects. How many of you, during the days of Professor Jonathan Moy, did not sing Wondo Emilia when they were battling, even if you're a member of MDC-T? All of you were singing the song unconsciously because he came out with a way of emotionally connecting. How many of you were now using the lingo handed toward them on Twitter? So the language of getting people to vote is totally different. So I think we need to dissuade ourselves from this notion that we need solid manifestos, campaign strategy. It's important, it deals with a certain audience, but the majority of people, their language is common, it's grassroots support. They want the basics. Yeah. So on Twitter, when people are saying, no, Nelson Chamisa is being, he's raising issues that are not achievable in everything. He is addressing an audience, and that audience, to a certain extent, would want to hear that. So there's a dynamic in it. So unfortunately, I just want to raise that so that we are not caught up. If you have to look at policy, and people are offering solid solutions, then let's start talking about Manika, let's start talking about Kosana. Let's start looking at what is it that they are proposing. If Zimbabweans were genuinely looking at policy issues, then we should look at all the candidates. Unfortunately, the reality is, because people are emotionally connected, unless some of these candidates move to these bigger parties, they will not get the support. That's unfortunate, that's the reality.
Asante sana. Any more questions? Okay.
Opportunity. Well, I'm a feminist, and I've been voting in every election since I turned 18. But I'd like to agree with what the issue that was raised, that there are no issues that are being raised for people to vote for. So even for this election, I have registered, but I'm sitting here, I really have no candidate to vote for in terms of the president, because for me, none of them are speaking to my issues as a feminist and as a woman. So, as a responsible citizen, yes, I'm registered to vote, but no one is speaking to me, you know, because you look at the political parties and how they treat the women within their political structures. It tells me that they don't like, like you say, they don't like women. It's like we are just there to make sure that, you know, when there are rallies, we're there, we dance for the men, and, you know, we serve them salsa and all that. And that's not what I want as a feminist. I want equality. I want to see the women in the political parties having space, in those spaces that matter. And at the moment, it's not happening. And my second point is also, I've been living in Harare since I think about 2000, but I actually grew up in Bulawayo. And having, I think, been in these two places, I always maintain that the politics in Zimbabwe is heavily tribalized and genderized. So I'm thinking about Kupe, that whether it was the constitution or not, highly unlikely in a couple of years to actually see and develop a woman actually leading a political party in Zimbabwe, unless maybe if she forms her own party. That's what I think. So for me, I think for those reasons, I think it's very difficult to know who to vote for. So I think, and it goes back, I agree with Glenn that really there are no issues. So it's not about the policies. And I think maybe for Kulu Bay, because I mean, people can say no, but he's not going to win. But we are not even worried about what he's offering when it is counted him. Because look, you know, he doesn't belong to any of the two political parties. So yeah, I am going to vote, but I don't know. It's going to be an emotional issue. Probably I'll vote for Kulu Bay because, you know, he's an eye candy.
Kulu Bay, that's a new one, okay. let's get 2 more.
Okay, I'm going to speak just a little about women in politics.
Yes, Saki.
Saki Ngoma. Okay, I think it was in 2004 when we heard that Joyce Njuru, she downed an aeroplane. And this is the right candidate for a woman to take over the presidency. And I said, yes, she downed an aeroplane. I got told it. Didn't get last minute. Yeah, no, 2004. That was 2004. And I said, yes. And what transpired? So I was waiting about the in 2013. I mean, Anzina Mugabe assassinated because whatever happens, about women in politics and about hero worshiping in Pan. Hero worshiping in Zanu-PF. We cannot say it's hero worshiping. When we have a leader, just like in the churches, Makandiwa, with the Makandiwa in the other Magaya, na you get to Munich. It's not hero worshiping. I've been there to their meetings, to their worshipings, whatever. One room beat Basabana and did. Zanu political party, no room with Babana man. So then we talk about Gabina Baban, Namai blessing and did. Another issue you what the doing and the lot of what here in the Robert room beats and go am I in the elections. I think I hate from another second, maybe second year in Miss Mumma. No, I didn't meet her, but I'm my presence. The Grilla piece of paper should be present, but what to be. What to be a piece of present, I wasn't in the professors or Timothy from Zion. One to get the and dressing some meters and some Timothy. Like a piece of present in Iran was Antipania said, not to pizza. Antipania said, not about two. Antipania said, not about present. In my present, the writer said, the writer said, as okay, that's about the succession issue, I think on the panel. Succession issues I on MDC, I think it's okay. Because Zanu-PF needs a MDC fully right. But I don't want him. Succession Mukotori, actually pay you. There are roommates and I'm so no look about our favor. Just the way to say, go back. Can't go see when you're an ambassador to but then came the young guy, Nation Commission. They are going to choose one even down, they are going to say, about the Congress, I don't think the Congress is anything. I think he was Chamisa, Energy, Abananga. They can have an ambassador. 2018 I think it's a good game Nanga was again. Zimbabwe. The political situation in Zimbabwe I don't think you know that money. I don't think so. About the universe, I just wait. The Batanga says 24th November or inauguration. Like I was there in the demonstrations speech on the 18th, it was on the 18th of November. I'm out of South Africa. I'm in Angaba. No, but I'm going to demonstrate. I'm going to go to the second. I'm 5 months since the 24th of November. Right by Yangan. And you can put back again. But you go to Zanu-PF. Now, I tell me so much about Salu and you go to everything. And you can the number of political parties are MDC Alliance in an MDC and Mugabe watu wasongo katano soko bangu na beba mwana boyasi kabonzo na MDC watu chamisa chanu Mugabe anato takamjauda 2000 saka anga sanku sokewa Mugabe
okay bazitankono tipe wangu mukana kuti watawo bazitamani a comment or question from one more person, and then we'll allow the panelists to respond. Apana kana mwene mkazi. Okay, regaitor na mkoma wane. Madzimaya muskutaura nego wedwe. Vire kuregaita.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to dispute that we have a fair election or a free and fair election in Zimbabwe, because that has never happened in Zimbabwe. It only happened in the last election in Rhodesia in 1980. We must remember that in Zimbabwe, it's not about the voting process, it's not about who is there, it's about the announcement of the results which matters. We witnessed that twice in 2008. That it is the announcement which is important. We also had the runoff where we had an election, and before even the ballot boxes were counted, someone has declared a president and was already in Cairo. So it's not about, we are not going to have free and fair elections. That illusion, you know, opposition parties, those series for because we already know the winner for 2018. I also want to say elections in Zimbabwe, for that reason, are only a veneer, a petuna on top of dictatorship, just to cover up, to get some bit of legitimacy. Then I want to agree with the male speaker that we have a leadership crisis in Zimbabwe. I want to give thumbs up to Zanu-PF. She's a fighter. She's a hero in her own right, because the moment Chamisa is the numbers. There's no dispute on that. But we should follow processes. And that is what Madame Kobe is just doing. Let's follow processes. We are going to have an election in 2018 where we are going to have two big horses who are not elected by their parties. Mnangagwa was not elected, he posed himself and was conferred at that Congress. Chamisa was not elected, he imposed himself, and he was not, be seconded at the Congress to be done. You know, the reason coming out of the MDC saying that we don't have money for a Congress, that is zairerizing the MDC. The president DRC is saying we don't have money for elections, so we are not going to go for elections. Imagine if Mnangagwa says we don't have money for elections, what would you do as Zimbabweans?
Okay.
Lastly, I would like to say the other reason why women are not participating fully in politics is the environment which has been created mainly by those who are in power. There is too much violence in election processes in Zimbabwe. There's emotional violence, there's physical violence, and women, they always want comfort. There is no a conducive environment to allow women to participate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I would want to agree that it's important that we follow due processes. I mean, the political parties must follow due processes. But I think we need to correct a misconception there that Mnangagwa elected himself, of which he didn't. I think the Constitution guided us as a nation in terms of what was supposed to be done. You know, when the sitting president resigns from his position, the Constitution is very clear that the ruling party is the one that provides a candidate. A candidate, and they did that after following their own procedure. And I remember that Mnangagwa was actually out of the country when the ruling party decided on his candidature to replace Robert Mugabe. So I think it would be a misnomer there to try and equate Chamisa to Mnangagwa in this regard. The other issue of hero worshipping, I would want to agree with that gentleman that it's important that we inculcate a culture of true tenets of democracy, where, you know, in as much as we support our leaders, I think the issue of hero worshipping must be taken with care. You know, it can lead to people being stooges, and it's not good. You know, it's important to actually, you know, do what is supposed to be done in political parties, but not hero worshipping. Because you don't want people to lose, you know, their senses, to lose even their being. Have you seen the religious leaders? You know, I'm not talking about you know, I mean, we've seen that in South Africa. You know, people being made to eat snacks. So people have to be worried about that. But I'm happy that Zimbabweans, you know, are not that kind of people, generally speaking, that do not, they do not hero worship, and that has to be guarded. That kind of being conscious about being a people that respect their very being is very important as we go on with our politics.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. A lot of them were comments, but I just want to pick up on two. One was around the election administration. I would encourage us to try and, if we want, we have a Zimbabwe that we want in our hearts and in our minds and in the way that we feel. If we want to have the Zimbabwe that we want, part of it also means we need to also begin to be the change that we want to see. And part of it means beginning to talk differently and to do differently. One of the things we need to be able to do is to talk differently around things regarding election administration. Let's talk about right now. We have all just finished registering to vote. Yes, voter registration is still ongoing, but many of us, you know, we register to vote. There are some people we want to encourage to go and register. But how many of us ever go to inspect the voters' roll afterwards? I'll give a typical example. I'm not saying that there are no issues in election administration, but I also want to talk about our responsibility in protecting our civic rights, what we also need to do. You went to register to vote, maybe your name was put in wrongly, maybe at the time that you registered to vote, you were put in a different ward or a different polling station. You don't do anything after registering to vote. It doesn't matter whether you registered in, you know, the BVR time or the time before we didn't have BVR. But most of us don't go to register to inspect the voters' roll. The day that you discover the drama is the day that you arrive at the polling station. And then you see, I'm not here at this place. I'm turned away. You are so frustrated to vote anymore because people feel like, it doesn't matter. But what are we doing? If it was your electricity bill, you would say, why do I now owe $50? You would go and find out. Do the same with your political rights. I want to go to the second point around the election environment. I do think that the election environment in Zimbabwe matters. And I'm not interested in lowering my standards. Just because there is election violence in another country doesn't mean that it's okay with me to have election violence in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe has a constitution. I want to start with the national standard before I go to international standards. The constitution of Zimbabwe has got a very strong quality of what it expects to see in the what? In the election, including issues around the election environment. So it's not about necessarily wanting comfort, you know. It's about saying, I have the right to be safe and secure before speaking and after speaking, before voting and after voting. Let us have a better quality election environment.
Okay, Lynn, briefly. Okay. We'll take two more questions.
Politics yedu mu Zimbabwe yanyanya kudominatwa ne maloya. Chono kuti maloya breed remaloya ratinaro vakaita matsotsi vazhinji vacho. They can hide behind the thing. Vachikutaura kuti nhema ichokwadi. Saka I think basically studying law does not guarantee justice. when it comes to leadership. And I think as Zimbabweans, it's high time we looked into the issue of candidature and also vis-a-vis the issue of justice and equity. I foresee the issue of justice is still a long way, and let alone issues of women inclusivity in party democracy. I think Zataona so far, it leaves a lot to be desired, because it actually shows what the Asata Tanga not democracy. Because the Kanatine Mama dominant parties in Zimbabwe, unfortunately, I think emotional attachment in the way Chango Shanda, but quite a good democracy or freeness and fairness. But even Vanega Wagoda, Panache Quita, Chamber Mukats, Unebo Got Cherochi, Dango one Zisa or Siku. You know, so I'm just crying about the issue of candidature.
I mean, the way I see things, the brother said 1980, the time that we had a free and fair election. But I would dispute that. That was actually a free and fair election, because in Joshua, I mean, my areas, these areas, like the eastern, Nema, southern areas, they were not allowed to campaign there, the Zanu-PF. Although it was not as violent as it is. The emergency of Robert Mugabe, I believe that's when the standard actually deteriorated in terms of election. This time, I think the environment, there's been some improvement when it comes to the political environment. And the other thing is about factions emerging from both dominant parties, that's MDC and Zanu-PF. Like that, what that brother said about 2023, I believe my factions will actually benefit a lot as we evolve, because our political system is actually evolving. We are growing, we are having this audience, and dialogue and so forth. We never had such things in the past. Those are some of the things that we used to know. So we are not, I mean, it's not all that bad. We are actually moving. Even Malay is able to know we get involved in this and that. The fact that you are standing up and saying we want to get involved, you know, it's actually a development that's coming up, because we never had it in the past. So we should not be discouraged in a situation that we are evolving. Let's get encouraged. Let's look into 2023. I think it will be totally a different environment in which we are. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm General, an unemployed economist. Okay. First and foremost, I would love to appreciate what you said about the citizen. We are lacking the proper definition about what is politics. Everyone thinks that politics is making violence. And I have always having these questions become a melody in everyone's mind, that who makes violence? Who makes violent? And what makes people make violent? And who stops violence? The citizen, the unemployed citizen, are the ones who are making violent. And the reason why they are making violent runs to the premise side of economy. The unemployed part, the poverty, has made people to get involved in violence. And who stops violence is the police officers. Are the police officers stopping violence? No. Why? Because there is corruption in the nation. Then in closing, the citizens are lacking voter education. Voter education. Why? Because we don't see who to vote and why to vote. At the same time, there is a gap between leaders for the nation and power-hungry people for the nation. Thank you.
I think some of the comments that came in were just comments, so I'm not going to deal with those comments. I'm going to deal with the free and fairness of an election. I think Saki touched on it earlier on. The free and fairness of an election are many factors. It starts from the voter's role, the voting environment, the openness of the media, the ability of citizens to be able to listen to who is saying what and to make their choice, what happens on voting day, the counting and the results. So the question that we need to ask ourselves when the current president says this election is going to be free and fair is what is it in this time around that has been done that is different from what we have experienced in the past. If the checklist shows you any difference, then you should either feel that the election is going to be free, fair, and credible. But I also want to leave you with this because I want you to decide. Africa has developed a culture of stage managing elections, where you pretend that we are going to have a free and fair election, you provide the optics of competition, but inherently the process is not free and fair. Because the benchmark for legitimacy has been put as an electoral process, dictators, bad leaders now know how to stage manage an election. And I would want you to look at this election and make your decision whether it's going to be free and fair. I have my own views. I'm throwing it back to you for you to make a decision. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'll make a few comments about whether the international observers will contribute anything on whether we have free and fair elections. I think observers, generally speaking, contribute towards the credibility of an election, in that when you invite international observers, you are saying that your systems are, you're opening up to transparency. You're declaring that I have nothing to hide. So that in itself adds to credibility of elections. And remember, these international observers will also write their reports, and those reports are normally very good for elections. It's one thing to then analyze the observers' reports, but it is a good gesture in terms of a government that opens up in terms of, election observation. But the issue of free and fair elections is a contribution of many factors. Factors which say we should know where to put the blame. There are political parties who will not do anything about an election, who will not even campaign, and still want to say that an election was not free and fair, when they have not even campaigned, they have not come up with a program, to showcase and even say that, vote for us, we have done this, we have done this, we have done this. People sometimes are very just used to rhetoric. So, this question of free and fair, it also, even the political parties, when they are doing their own intra-party democracy, the primary elections, have an important role to play in terms of how people perceive an election. Some political parties will not even have a primary election. You just have candidates declare that this one is the candidate. You remember in the 2013 elections, that was a big issue, with some political parties just imposing candidates and saying that no primary elections, no primary elections. So primary elections are very important, because they enhance intra-party democracy, they enhance the people's participation, transparency, intra-party competition, integrity of a party. So when people go in the ballot box, they will choose a party that is promoting democracy. But I would want to say, as my, if we are, concluding, I would want to say that intra-party democracy is very important in elections. Not really as we're talking, not on the national outlook of elections, but was on the national election of elections. Remember, we have ZEC, which is the national board that is, that is the mandate to deal with national elections. But remember, we have all these intra-party issues. The political parties have to learn to manage differences. They have to learn how to manage differences. Most political parties just want to deal with the disciplinary issues, disciplinary procedures. Remember, there is what is called conflict management. Political parties must engage the instruments of conflict management vis-a-vis going the disciplinary route. The other issue that I wanted to say, that the issue of political leadership is very important. You know, goodwill from political leadership is very important in an election. And I would also want to say that, you know, party constitutions must be upheld. If they are outdated, they must be reviewed, you know, so that you don't have constitutions that are no longer speaking to the party practices, but they should promote democracy. But my last point is that the purpose of political parties must be understood. They sometimes we place blame on government, unnecessarily so. You know, parties have a duty to play, they have responsibilities to play, they must be accountable.
Professor Manyori, for that final analysis. I'm actually told that we've run out of time, so that is a perfect place to stop this discussion. Thank you, panelists, for contributing your time and also your considered thoughts. And thank you all for coming to this event. See you next time, where we'll continue to make elections make sense. Thank you.